Hi, new participants. Wow, the numbers are growing. That's great. If you want to put where you come from in the chat, that would be great. And if you can start the thread, that would be much appreciated. We're going to start in a couple of minutes for this session. Hi, everyone. Hi, Ed. Session about activating the arts in education with our super friends and partners of the Learning Planet Festival. Today, Friday, 28th of January 2022. So Ed from Paris, the others, where you come from? Eric from, oh, that's tricky. You're not in New York City, but that's a good title. 100 miles north of New York City. In the countryside, probably. I see Thessaloniki, I see Budapest, Helsinki, Trieste. Wow, that's too much now. Alex is joining from Paris. We have Yelena from Bosnia and Herzegovina. Pat, hi Pat, from Panama. It's very early for you, my God. Reka, a fellow Hungarian from Paris now. And Olivier is here. Very nice to see you, Olivier. India, from London. Yeah, it's very international. That's great. Yefren. Hi, Yefren from Paris. We have a few from Paris connecting today. From Scotland. Athens, hi. Christina, we have Helsinki, Dora. That's great to see that we are actually connecting from everywhere in the world. And Chaba, I'll pass you the baton to having a meaningful and interesting session. Up to you.
Thank you, Ani, and welcome everyone. Today we're going to explore what the role and the importance of arts could be for education. And we have invited a few special guests for that. And also we're inviting you and counting on you to share your thoughts so we can explore this exciting space together. What we're going to do is first I would say a few introductory words about how we approach this theme at the Community Arts Network and what we think the most fundamental issues are about. Then I will ask our special guest to share a few thoughts, examples, tools, solutions, practices based on what they see and what they are doing. And then there will be someone from a school who will be sharing an initiative and a project that's going to happen, so that we go deeper and deeper into from the conceptual to the practical and the grounded practice level, so that that we can hopefully explore what the role of arts could be in education, both in terms of shaping it, activating it, bringing it alive, and I think the real question is really, you know, how do we shape and change education into something that is meaningful in the 21st century? In a global context, because we are in different situations and preparing for life means different things in different contexts. So I will share screen and we will be doing that, and I would like everyone please to put comments and questions that come up for you in the chat. And Anis, my partner in crime, friend and colleague at the Community Arts Network, will be monitoring that, so we can return to those interesting questions when we get to the conversation part. So let's do this. And the question is, where to start really? And What I think really the most fundamental issue and challenge we face in education today is how do we move from an education approach and system that is rooted and was born in an industrial paradigm to something that is better fitting for our new, complex, fast-changing, emergent, and much more networked than uncertain world, really. And to go beyond that, can arts really have a role in that? So where do we start unraveling this? I think probably the place to kind of start from is to recognize that in the industrial era, the fundamental organizing principle around which we started building education was the question of what to teach. And that requires a lot of planning and the idea that if we plan well what we need to teach and we can do that teaching efficiently, then we can produce the outcomes that we desire. And that ultimately leads very naturally to things like classes, subjects, test books, central curriculum, and the education paradigm as we know it. But if we look a little bit deeper, and we don't really even need to go beyond our intuition from our own lives, there is another fundamental principle that could serve as core for education. That is how we learn. That is a very different idea to organize things around that, how we can develop healthy relationships with science, with history, with culture, with maths, with learning itself, with ourselves, with each other. And that really is something very fundamental, and that leads to very different structures and qualities embedded into in education. And I'm not arguing at all that we need to let go of what is working well, the what to teach. But what seems to be the case that we have exploited yet neglected at the same time this deeper relational layer in education as in other things, and maybe we would need to put more focus on this part as well, because the real vitality in growth, development, and learning really comes from this layer. And this is where, to us, really arts comes into the picture, because arts, engaging with arts, is really inherently emotional and experiential, and a true encounter with arts is really about shaping, building, and healing and transforming relationships with exactly these things. It may be each other, but it may be learning, it may be subjects, it may be with your own potential. And those are the key things, really, what education is about. And even beyond that, it doesn't even have to be classified as arts, but there is something that where the qualities of this explorative qualities of arts can be infused into other fields, other subjects, other domains of life, and they are just as powerful in that. So in this sense, art can be thought of as a tool as well, but I would argue rather as a vehicle that that is not exploited as a tool, but something that we can use to take us to other places where exploration, development, and learning happens in different ways. So bringing it all together, the way we see this at the Community Arts Network is that real change and growth depends on and is driven by relationship. It is rooted in them. And today, when we see a world that is filled with unhealthy relationships, we see or we think that art is really needed, because if we use it and integrate it consciously, it can build, shape, and heal those crucial relationships, so that a more art-filled and artful world is a world filled with healthier relationships. And that ultimately is the key to change, creating a better education, changing the world, making social impact. and so on. So this is really a little bit of a more philosophical introduction, but I would like to ask our guests to shed all sorts of light on this introduction. And I would like to introduce them, say a few words about them in the beginning, and they will pass the baton to each other. So first I will ask Eric Booth from the US, who's a great friend and really an amazing person. He's from the US, and he's led a team of teaching artists in the 90s to design the Artful Learning curriculum that is a pretty cool and interesting thing you'll hear about, and is also leading the International Teaching Artists Conference, the largest global organization with such focus. So it's going to be very interesting and a pleasure to hear from him. And I could just echo these words. And next one will be Jelena Soldo from Alteatar in Bosnia. They're using the power of theater and embodied arts for education and change. Then Konstantina Karameri from Stimuli for social change in Greece, designing and developing new artful tools and approaches for social innovation. Then Luis Katribosis from Slum Out Loud in India, using the power of performance and visual arts for learning, especially socio-emotional learning, creative confidence, critical thinking. And then finally, Dave Strudwick, the principal of Real School, an innovative school in Budapest, sharing about the project and its potential they are embarking on now, how they are trying to integrate arts into learning, into the learning journey on multiple levels. So that please do write the questions in the comments, and then let's have a conversation and explore this space together. And with this, Eric, please come and join us and share your thoughts. Eric, are you here?
I should start every sentence with, sorry, I'm on mute. Greetings to you all. I'm delighted after Csaba's big vision to present a very specific example of an experiment that began in the early 1990s when a group of teaching artists asked the question that if artists at work were the model for learning, what might a whole school look like? And as we were exploring this, Leonard Bernstein got interested in our work, supported it. We then grew over many years until now it is a model that's used in 17 schools across the US. And I want to give you a brief introduction. Using Csaba's model of healthy relationships, the key idea here is that we identified 4 key actions that are a springboard for healthy learning and that put the learners into a consistent pattern of a personal endeavor that's connected to group endeavor. I'm going to share my screen and give you a quick trip through what this looks like. And you should know, this is the first time in my life I have ever used PowerPoint. So I don't know if that's a happy moment for you, but here we go. The school program is called Artful Learning. It uses these 4 essential endeavors: experiencing the direct experience tied to a single concept with a significant question that connects to all the other learning happening in the school. Students inquire as researchers individually and together to develop new hypotheses. And I'm going to show you an example of 9-year-olds doing this. The creation of original work is a part of the exploration as artists do. Their work is an inquiry process. And then the essentialness of personal reflection and group reflection, reminding the sentence we said so many times from John Dewey: if you do not reflect on your experiences, you do not learn from them. We won't take time with this, but you'll notice in the center, there is a concept that opens up with a significant question, interdisciplinary exploration, and always the connection of a masterwork. And that masterwork may be an artwork, but it also might be the Pythagorean theorem. It might be the US Constitution. It is in all subject areas. And in this example, we're going to look at the concept of adaptation, how animals adapt to their environment to survive and thrive. And you can see the 4 elements they're using. Maybe I can move my screen so you can see a little better. Maybe I can't. There we go. So on adaptation, I'll show you what they were exploring. They were here practicing experientially. They had inquiry work, and their culmination was a book of their own writing and poetry about animal adaptation. This was the masterwork, a portrait by Chuck Close. And looking close, this idea of how he created the impression with blobs of paint and different colors juxtaposed to one another. They then carried this forward. They then carried this forward into, as you can see, them making their own color saturation experiments. And look at their hands. Chuck Close was disabled and had to hold paintbrushes in a very particular way. So they experienced directly the masterwork. They then explored adaptation. You can see animal adaptation in movement. We make sure it's always full body experiments. We then move on to their creation. We then see what an inquiry center looks like. This is another, just to give you an example, a masterwork, a young person exploring, and the work that she made. The students fill out reflection sheets alone and together. The teachers go through these same processes themselves. They have rubrics for what becoming an expert in this kind of teaching looks like. It takes 3 years of professional development to get there. Here are the academic results. You'll notice these 3 years when we were working with the teachers is when the academic achievement began to climb. And then starting here, they were on their own in Artful Learning, and the learning continues to climb. Artful Learning, there's a website. We maybe have a question about it later, but I wanted to give you this specific example, and I want to stop sharing my screen and pass the focus to Yelena.
Thank you, Eric. Thank you for passing the focus. And I have to say, when you were sharing everything, I was just envisioning this is something that we at Alteatr are aspiring to do one day, and that you've been doing it for years and so systematically, and we have only begun to uncover what we can do with theater in education and how we can use artistic knowledge and creation for education. So I think this was amazing. Thank you. So to start off, I would just like to share a bit of a background about Alteatr. We work in Bosnia and Herzegovina, and this year we're turning 18 years old, coming full of age. And for years we have been primarily focused on creating producing independent theater plays, professional theater plays. We work as an artistic collective. We bring together artists, we bring together experts from artistic and social disciplines and young people to create socially engaged theater. And our kind of mission in this process is to offer to our audiences thought-provoking collective narratives that are balanced with the humor, reflection, and always a renewed sense of hope. So this is what we aim to do in the society, to offer a renewed sense of hope. It was only in the couple of past 5 or 6 years that we began experimenting on application of theater in learning, what it can do as a tool, as a vehicle for young people to learn. So we design theater-based activities on various topics, and we gather young people to use acting techniques, to use movement, creative writing, expression, and to explore various topics such as peace building, which is very important for us in Bosnia and Herzegovina, ecology, active citizenship, community mobilization, senses of belonging, identities, and stereotypes. And in this process, we have uncovered that we basically can use theater, as you mentioned, to learn anything, any topic. We can use it for social sciences, for sciences like maths, physics, and chemistry. But what matters is the process that we're learning. So far we've been experimenting with a variety of methods, and I would like to share a couple of thoughts on what we've uncovered and what amazes us in how theater can be, how arts can be important in education. Whenever we bring together a youth group to work, I'm always amazed by the transformative power of theater, transformative power of arts, not only in the learning process, how we can transform learning, but what it actually does to young people participating in the process. We aim to create a safe zone with our educations, but young people so easily immerse into it. They instantly embrace the creative process. They become active. They become playful. They explore. They are suddenly curious. They feel they step out of their comfort zone. They gain all of this courage to be in the spotlight, because we use theater. Our participants are always seen as actors on the stage telling a story. In this sense, we've noticed how much they take ownership over the learning process, and how easily they cooperate with each other, how easily they share their opinions and thoughts, and they truly internalize the knowledge. The reason why I feel this is very successful and well received by young people is because in Bosnia and Herzegovina, our education system is always called outdated, that we have old notebooks, old textbooks, old teaching methods. But what I see it is that we are the education system first works in the way that the knowledge is repetitive. So the process goes, I, as a student, as a learner, I get this information, the material that I have to learn it, I repeat it, I get a grade, I forget immediately the enormous chunk of knowledge that I had to absorb, and then I get my degree or diploma, and then I hopefully in Bosnia and Herzegovina find a job based on the knowledge that I no longer possess because I basically forgot everything. And I read someone wrote in the chat room, I think it was Olivier, about the success where we're in competition with this learning, where we learn to be successful on the market. And this, I believe, we've lost sight of what education should be for young people, for children, for youth, where we just fill them with this knowledge. It's repetitive, it's dead. And this is why during our educations we get so much, the things that we do are well received, because the acquiring knowledge is active, it's alive, it's playful, it's filled with positive energy. The learning is not seen as a burden, something I have to do for a grade. It's something that I want to do, that is inspiring and empowering for me. So I think the reason they respond so well is because they crave this type of learning process, and we don't have it in the education education system, it's only dependent on remarkable teachers, individuals who are willing to go beyond their curriculum, the design, this prescribed curriculum from the ministries, to do something more for their teachers, their students, to inspire this desire to learn, to have to kind of build this new outlook and relationship with knowledge. Unfortunately, since we are new to this field and we are still experimenting and developing as an organization, we have been sort of doing these theater-based educations and embodied learning on the margins of the education system. So we would organize educations, work independently with teachers who want to invite us in their schools. And we are aware that a systemic change is necessary, but the fact that the educational system is quite rigid and it's very divided across many government levels in Bosnia and Herzegovina. We have 30 ministries of education. It's very difficult to actually mobilize this systemic change. What we feel that would be great to kind of go around about this and move from this dead knowledge, this repetitive knowledge, into a more active learning process. I think the one step that we can take now, and the one step that we can all do at this moment, is to embrace and recognize the role and responsibility in creating a flourishing environment for young people to learn. I heard on the internet, on Instagram the other day, someone was sharing that if you see a plant that's not growing well, you don't blame it on the plant. You check its soil, you check whether it has sun, water, light, or whatever it needs. And this is, I think this is our responsibilities, both as in educational institutions and artistic organizations, to recognize and embrace the responsibility of creating this flourishing environment, even when it's not so easy to do. And in that sense, this first step would be reaching out to each other, connecting, using kind of working in service of each other, what the artistic organizations can offer to educational institutions. We have the knowledge, we have the techniques, the movements, the energy, and for educational institutions, it would be a kind of a call for action to open their doors to artists, to organizations, and bring them into the learning process of students until one day we can achieve this systemic change where arts would be a core to education of young people. On this note of the need and the need to create systemic change, I will stop. I'm sorry if I talked way too fast. It's my thing. I just like but I will stop here and with great pleasure pass the baton to Konstantina. I just have to say I'm a huge fan of Konstantina, her organization and their Nemesis project, not only because they're working so hard to get this systemic change and to build the new normal where arts is embedded into the educational process, but that they're offering them everything that they're doing as a resource for everyone. I'm from Bosnia and Herzegovina. I have been following the project for years, and it's really been a learning experience for me. So Konstantina, the stage is yours.
Wow, thank you, Yelena. Thank you so much for your good words, and greetings from Greece. Hello, everyone. It's very nice to be here. It's our first time at Learning Planet Festival, and I'm Konstantina from Stimuli for Social Change. I will share my screen as well. All right. To see if I can do something about full screen. Yep. Okay, so we're here to, I'm really glad to be here in this panel with these amazing speakers. I mean, everything I've heard so far is very inspiring, and I'm really glad to be among you, and especially among people who really cherish arts and creativity, and let's see what we can do together. So in short, I will try to be short. I am Konstantina. I'm a project manager for Stimuli for Social Change. I'm based between Athens and Thessaloniki, Greece. I have a background in law, so I'm not an artist. So you're probably wondering what I'm doing here. I have 5 minutes to explain to you why I'm here. So let me try in brief. So what we do with Stimuli for Social Change is that we're trying to make education exciting and engaging and making it fun, because who doesn't need fun? Who doesn't need to feel well about learning things and not feeling really stressed and bored? This was a picture from the design-a-thon that we co-organized in Thessaloniki some years ago. And at the same time, we care about the commons. So we want to bring change to the community. Here is an example of our collaborators from the Nemesis project, Zemos from Spain, who created an alternative of Monopoly. So it's Commonspoly. So it's a board game. It's a board game with role playing and changing the way we see even gaming in our life. And of course, who doesn't want more of these? I mean, of course, we want more art. Of course, we want more creativity. We want more of this in our lives. So how it all started, with the motto is to inspire future education and ignite positive change in society. The group of Stimuli for Social Change started with an Horizon European funding program, which is called Nemesis, Empowering the Change Makers of Tomorrow. This was our pioneer project. It finished in 2021. And the main objective of this project was to explore the methodology of nourishing tomorrow's change makers. So in order to arrive to innovation, we were thinking that education should go outside the school walls, and we and the students and the teachers should also engage with the community. So what we were focusing on is not just the training of the students, but also of the wider school community, which includes the teachers, the families, and the local community. This is the website. You can check it whenever you want. We started with having co-creation labs, which were the basis of the Nemesis educational models, where different kinds of stakeholders were collaborating towards the identification of a local community-based challenge, and then they transformed this challenge to a project-based learning opportunity. This is a big text, so I will just highlight that the main principles of designing all our resources was about co-creation of knowledge and collaborative thinking. So the social dimension of innovation, which means having impact in society, and the link to real life experience is the one I mentioned before. So we identified a community-based challenge, and then we were working on it as a project with different kinds of means, of course. Here we see a project with children from the school of Seip Los Álvarez in Spain, where they transformed, using creativity, their school environment. They became change makers themselves, and they made a greener school, a greener schoolyard. They created a friendship bench. They saw the challenges in their area. They saw the challenges in their school. They addressed the community with radio shows, and they engaged their families and friends and local community in order to transform their area, transform the community. What we ended up, one of the main conclusions of Nemesis was that art and creativity combined with social challenges and co-creation can really bring change, because as already mentioned, arts and creativity have this transformative role. They have this transformative component that is not comparable to anything else. So, facts. Creativity and the arts have a huge impact in educational environments and play a very important role in bringing change to class and further to the community around it. Fact two, that the culture and creative sector is in danger. In the EU, it is facing still stereotypical perceptions. It is not a priority sector. It has been ripped off from different national curricula. And meanwhile, the culture creative sector has been hit hard by the global pandemic, while already facing sustainability issues of survival. So what do we do? with social change, we combine developed technical skills through our developed expertise in project management. So I have a background in law, others have in political sciences and so on. So we managed to apply projects with transnational value and a multidisciplinary approach. So we're trying to have projects that go beyond Greece's borders and have all this transnational value, and we bring national context to make universal curricula, which is designing curricula that is and teachers training that is adaptable and flexible for everyone. We're working with the whole community. We co-design and co-create with all stakeholders of the school community. So we cherish everyone's input, even if it comes from students, teachers, parents, local entrepreneurs, activists, artists, and policymakers. Our focus areas and expertise are all that, because we're a team of 10 people. We have invested a lot in our team and of our valuable team members who have different kinds of expertise in mediation, employability, green skills, digital skills, creativity, and we're trying to create cross-disciplinary projects that bring innovation and social innovation, especially. These are some of the projects I am managing, which combine creativity, arts, digital tools, fun, and also citizenship. So we have Creatives Academy, which is basically a project that is reintroducing the role of the artist in class and is also reintroducing the cultural profession. ArtEd, which is also a project that is focusing on art-based learning and well-being. Social and Cultural Innovation Labs, which is digital art and citizenship, and Social Radio, which is radio and podcasting for change making. What we want to do is to promote arts and education while advocating for their better positioning in school curricula. We evaluate and collect data from all our steps of our actions and project phases. We assess the impact of creativity and the arts in school classrooms and beyond. We collaborate with artists and artistic creative associations to achieve that, and we run collective projects with all voices heard. And we invest a lot in the process and the development of the relationships. We want to develop relationships not just with the people we're working with, but also with the community. It's a basic thing for us, not to arrive just to the results, but the most special thing of all is to build relationships with these people and invest in the process. So if you want to know more about this, you can check our website and social media. We have free resources and opportunities for collaborations as well. We are currently running around 30 projects, and we are really looking forward to new collaborations. But the most important thing is, and I will stop sharing, the most important thing for us is that all these resources, as Jelena said, are used, you take it and you do it something else, and you really, this is the value and this is the success for us, that all this material is not lost, because I know there are so many projects around that you can get lost in this. But things that create impact are really important right now, things that create well-being for children after this chaos that we have been through and we're still going through, is very important for education. And I want to thank you for your time. And Louise, I will give the baton to you, to the other side of the planet, to Delhi. So greetings from EU time zone.
Thank you so much, Konstantina. And I'm really, hi everyone, I'm really happy to be here. It's so inspiring to hear about all these different initiatives from all around the world that are striving to do the same as we're trying to do. To start with, I'd like to just start with, I guess, a more personal story that of my encounter with the arts and how I've experienced the arts, because I actually first experienced the arts at school. I discovered theater in school through theater classes, and it was completely transformative for me. I was creative, but I was very introverted and shy, and going to these theater classes completely transformed me. I became a lot more extroverted, very daring. I became completely fearless. And so the arts have always been a very important part of my life, as I've, made also a career out of it. But something that's always been very important to me is how to make sure that everyone gets access to these transformative experiences, and how we can make this a fundamental right and not a privilege. And I guess this is where I connected very deeply with Slum Out Loud. So I'll just share my screen to tell you a little bit more. There we go. So at Slum Out Loud, we are a nonprofit. We are based in India. And what we do is we use art forms like theater, poetry, storytelling, the visual arts to enable children from low-income communities to build the skills of creative confidence. So they're a combination of 21st century skills and socio-emotional learning skills. And we do that through programs where we place professional and emerging artists into classrooms where they work with children, run arts workshops with them during the academic year. We also create e-learning resources. And I would say what's very important for us, and to give you also a little bit of background, if some people here are not familiar with socio-emotional learning. Socio-emotional learning is the process through which we regulate our emotions, we feel empathy towards others, we collaborate with others, we communicate, we set ourselves goals. So sometimes they've been used, life skills, soft skills, and it's gaining more and more kind of momentum in the field of both holistic education. It's also garnering some backlash in some parts of the world as well, as it's being brought into classrooms. And why we think socio-emotional learning is so important is because, as Chaba says, it enables us to have better relations, first with ourselves. It enables us to have better relations with others, with society. And the way in which we use art is we create safe spaces for creative expression for these children to creatively express themselves. And I use creative expression as a word because this is our vision for art. We don't work to kind of enable artistic excellence or to uncover artistic talents in children, but what we really want to create is these spaces for expression where children get to explore parts of their personality, they get to explore their identity, they get to explore their relationship with others, and build these skills, these socio-emotional learning skills, which are also mentioned here on the slide. So we work specifically with these 6 skills, but essentially what we, as I've said, creative expression is at the core of what we do in creating these spaces for these children to really find their voice, essentially find their voice and be able to thrive and succeed in the world. What we've seen, as an impact is that most of the children who have been involved in the programs have grown, have become more confident, have become more creative. Some of them, and not all of them, because the goal is also not to find children and to make children artists, but some of them, it's really had a transformational effect for them. They've gone on to perform on international platforms, at TEDx talks, at festivals, and they've performed their poetry that they had written. They've been able to express their thoughts to thousands of audiences. They've also facilitated workshops in poetry and spoken word with other children and with adults. So this has really, for some of the children, what has happened is that art has opened some completely new doors for them. And generally, I'm talking about a kind of more, some of the children who were creative already and for whom this was a revelation. But for most of them, what we have seen is they have become, their socio-emotional learning skills have developed as a result of being involved, as a result of their encounter with art and with their experience of a certain art form. But unfortunately, excuse me, unfortunately, these spaces for safe creative expression are still rare. So to give you a bit of background of first art education in India, for example, in Delhi, which is a state which is one of the best states, they have one of the best education policies in the country. children in government schools receive about 20 hours of art education in a year. Teachers, there are very few qualified and trained teachers to be able to, hold these art lessons. Some of them, there's one art teacher for every 1,400 students, which is a huge number. So as an overall, art education is generally deprioritized, both by the government and also in general perception, where art is kind of seen as a good to have. But what we see is that art is a must have, especially for children in government schools or for children from low income communities, because for them the must have is perceived, and most projects also revolve around basic literacy, around math and arithmetics, around an education that will that will give them, that will lead to a successful career, or that might lead to academic success, which is important, but should not exclude all of the kind of more holistic and all of the more holistic benefits which we can gain from engaging in creative expression and engaging in art. So I guess I have to conclude, and to conclude this talk, have lots of questions, and especially regarding the title of this discussion, which is Activating Arts and Education. Absolutely, art has had for me, and art has had for so many of the children involved in our program, it has a completely transformative effect on them, and on how they perceive themselves, and on how confident and creative they are, and therefore how they dream, what their aspirations are, and how they perceive their aspirations. But in order to activate arts in education, we also need to think about how do we rethink arts? How do we rethink arts education? And how do we rethink education as well to include all of the more kind of holistic benefits that an education can bring? So lots of questions to kind of conclude this talk with. Feel free to also check out our website. I'd be happy to answer any questions that you might have in the comments. But for now, I'd like to pass the baton to Dave, who will tell us a little bit more about. I'm really excited to hear about what you've done with your school. Thank you.
Thank you, Louise. And just to say, I love the way that you shared about your personal experiences as well as your organizational approach. It's so important to connect to the passion and energy in this group. I think we're all here where we can align around the power of the arts in a whole range of ways. And I wanted to share a little bit today about my experiences at Real School in Budapest. So I'll just share my screen.
Did you click on slideshow?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Ed. So it always looks easy when I'm watching someone else. So thank you for the help there. So yeah, I really wanted to connect in around the whole process of art as a vehicle, making as a vehicle. And I just connecting back to what Csaba was saying earlier, that industrial model, I think it has lost some of the really age-old processes that everything from storytelling to mark making has always brought. So in some levels we're talking about innovation, but in another level we're talking about something really age-old and fundamental to being human and being well. And I think it's important we hold on to that. So Real School is a relatively new school. We're in our third year of operating. As you can see, the A and the art-filled parts are really fundamental to the school. It's not the icing on the cake. It's definitely a part of the cake. And we've got a real focus around the development of creating, of dreaming and building a beautiful world, and with a focus around sustainability. And we see the arts as fundamental to that. And I want to just share a little bit today about some of the things that we've been doing in relation to that, so that art isn't just the Tuesday afternoon or the 1 in 1,400 teachers. It's a whole mindset, approach, and enrichment vehicle, toolkit, all of those things. I think there's many ways of seeing this. And I also feel really privileged as well that I'm in a position where I'm a part of a community that really holds that dearly, and I'm very mindful that sometimes others are not in such a lucky position. So yeah, just as a little illustration, this is our wonderful art teacher, Pani. But although we've got Pani as a specialist art teacher, her background actually is an architect and designer. She's not a qualified teacher, but boy, does she bring some passion and enthusiasm to this area, and others do too. It's not that it resides in her, but I wanted to share this picture of her working with young people, because I think it gives you that sense of really a felt experience, a sense of the room disappearing for some of those children in complete absorption, which again for me is a wonderful part of what the arts can do, and important to recognise that education isn't the sole kind of realm of teachers. I'm a teacher, and I have been for many years, but Pani brings an authenticity to the art and the design process that I would struggle to do. It's great to have that within the school, but as some of our other speakers have been talking about, it's so important that isn't just a school thing, it's about the whole community. And I want to share about a little provocation, an idea that I'm interested in developing within our school, but also the wider provocation for us today, for me, is about what can we make together so that we can connect some of these amazing things that we've already been hearing about in a way that actually builds on that sense of movement and development and sharing of passion. And so yeah, I'm going to talk a little bit about that. I wanted you just to stop a second and look at this slide, and if any of you feel brave enough and comfortable enough to step over the internal running commentary inside your head, could anybody share what they can see? What's the thing that you notice looking at this slide? And if nobody's brave enough, I'm going to have to pick on somebody and say, can you, in true teacher style, Eric, could you help me out? What's the first thing you noticed?
I noticed, I was just writing an answer in the chat. It looks to me like a new branch emerging from a wound.
Yeah. I love how love how you described that too, and probably some of us would have described it in different ways, but seen a similar thing. Well, I love how you described that really eloquently and beautifully. How many of you, out of interest, could you just
Dave, we have a lot of answers on the chat.
Oh, great.
About the owl. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 people. An owl.
Great.
And
how many people couldn't see the owl? That's interesting as well, because now that you've seen it, some of you can see it. Some of you will be searching for the owl now that that's been said. Eric, you couldn't see that a second ago. You saw something else. For me, one of the things now. You can see it now, absolutely. And I think one of the things that art really does amazingly, and that whole making experience does amazingly well, is to add that vibrancy and add that color into a situation, so that you actually see things in different ways, in different perspectives. You know, so often our brains, once they've got an answer, they stop searching. And I think one of the things that artists always bring to my world is different ways of seeing things, different ways of inquiring into things. As a school, similar to Eric's school, actually, we've got our process for how we go about creating taking something from a dream, just an idea, and then making it real. And that's that entrepreneurial streak, which is a strong part of our school. Always starts with experience. So often as educators, it's easy to assume that people have a connection to something and then goes into dreaming. For me, I would have dreaming in every national curriculum, wherever they exist all over the world, because those children that spend that time looking out the window and entertaining different ideas, sometimes that's a huge, valuable part of learning. The opportunity to entertain different ideas, to turn that then into some form of planning and iteration, but working towards an authentic expo, exhibition, and as we were talking about earlier, that importance of reflection, but not just reflection, also to reposition. How am I going to take this forward with me in the future, based on that? So the project I want to share that we're just starting at the moment, is a project called The Gallery in our Dream to Reality sessions in the school. And we always have a driving question. And the driving questions for us link into the Sustainable Development Goals. And at the moment, although it won't be this exact question, depending on the age of the children in the school, they're looking at variations of this around looking at areas around inequality, equity, and language matters in these areas, but trying to create a project that will have a social impact. And so each of the children in the school, in different ways, are exploring different artists, first of all, who have done this, around different areas, but also giving the children the chance to explore and surface what they really care about. What are the things that matter to them, with a view that they can then create a piece of work, iterate it a number of times, and also to go in that whole process of being an artist, of curating their work by having an actual gallery to work in. So later in March, at the end of March, the children will be having their work being curated, not only for themselves, for their parents. They would have been through a process as well of pitching to see if their work can enter the gallery, but more importantly, to engage the public around things that matter, messages that matter to them. So quite often, I think it's very easy to present something that feels great in one context and not another. So, for example, with some of our young people, we're looking at the significance of the Roma community. There's some aspects of belief and bigotry in Budapest, which we know is around, and we want to make sure that our children are aware of that, making meaningful connections to people within this community and being inspired, not from a point of view of trying to fix something, but from a point of view of creating and connecting community. Again, that part about relationship. And so the final thing really that I really wanted to leave us with before we go into a wider conversation was the importance of the who. And so often, I think we probably all are very value-driven people. We'll have that purpose and the why. And so often it's very easy then to go into the how. As a teacher, as a school leader, I love a good plan and can knock them out pretty quickly. But I think for things to really fly, for things to really develop, you've got to have that importance of the who. And Vicky on the left is one of our founders. She's also a filmmaker, and that passion for an authenticity of her coming into work with young people is something that, as an educator, we just are not going to have. She's an award-winning filmmaker, and so the chance for children to work alongside her just brings in something new. Anna in the middle is our resident social entrepreneur. You often hear of artists in residence. Anna is a social entrepreneur in residence, and is adding in all sorts of kind of networking and connections to NGOs that are just amazing. And Anna, again on the right, is an art historian connected to the gallery that we're working with. She's also a parent in the school. So what I suppose my challenge often is how can we create these opportunities for a wider community that isn't just the school community, really connects in more deeply, engages the public. And then my final question for us all is then, what could we all together dream and build together? And just to leave you a few seconds of looking at something that was made by the children in our school. This was an installation that they made in relation to learning, and it's entitled The Brain of Our School. Every child made parts of the mobile, parts of the installation that reflected the way that they saw learning. I think it's a really beautiful piece. So thank you for listening to us all and all those presentations. And it's my pleasure to hand back now to Csaba for a really important conversation.
Thank you. Thank you to all of you. And I've seen that there has been a lively chat going on in the meantime. So let's open this up for a conversation. The way I've kind of, as I've tried to follow the comments, there are a lot of interesting things. So it's not only about questions, but if you guys have something interesting and important to share, I think that's a great way to comment as well. And I do have a couple of my own, but let's first open the floor for I mean, Anis, if you can help me out here to single out a few people who had interesting questions or comments, and please do share.
I can do that. It was a very lively conversation, so I tried to gather all the thoughts. I would start with 3 remarks that were important for me. The first one, the technical one from Ed, saying that Paulina and Hannah from the Learning Planet team will capture the notes and links to this session, and this will be shared as well as the recording with all the participants following the session. So this is very good. So it also alleviates my job as moderator, which is very, very nice. From what I gather from all the panelists, the well-being, the safe space for expression, and how to explore personality, the relationship with the others. I want to say that we saw very, very, very well how you passed the baton with caring and everything that was related to the artfulness between each of the other, using the conductor's baton as the image. And then the remark from Eric and the subsequent remark from Olivier. Eric said that it's interesting how little comradeship has developed among those different programs that are so similar in the art, in the heart. And Olivier saying that while the scientists have a strong open science culture and innovators in the digital world have platforms like GitHub to learn from each other, in the field of education and social impact, so many incredible organizations, individuals are working in pockets of isolation, facing a huge bureaucratic machine and don't have the culture and solutions for sharing, learning from each other. We need to change this together. And I think that today was really a good example of such a platform. And maybe the first question, because it was something that was coming from several people here, is to define the success, who you all had a little bit, but maybe that one of the open call was about the intersection of arts, education, tech, and law. And Ed was saying, let's do this, but how can we do that? That would be maybe the first question.
Anyone would like to comment on it? Actually, I mean, is it kind of a combined question from a number of people, or can we tie it to someone so that they could actually say a few words how they mean this question?
Well, interestingly, it was a common thread in all the 4 presentations, but I'll give the baton to Ed, who said, let's do this.
It was just actually seeing when we heard initially, Constantino, your background in law, and saying, you weren't sure whether, you had a right, maybe it was a joke to the conversation, but evidently it's clearly the case. And it seems, that there are so many kind of silos of subjects in which art can be integrated, as opposed to seeing and let's build art in its own kind of separate space. And so it was just a comment really that how best can we, be really going for this cross-discipline, interdisciplinary kind of attack on bringing arts into education. That was just my my reflection as I was listening to the presentations.
Maybe if I could add the thought and make it into a question that we're talking about success and impact, and one thing really that seems to be crucial is how can we talk collectively and more credibly about the role, the success, the impact of what arts can bring, and if this a shared and powerful way of showing it, talking about it, is an obstacle to change. What do you guys think about this? So can we measure it? Can we show it? Is this important? Is this an obstacle? What could we do? What do you guys think? Do you guys measure impact in what you do?
I can start a bit to kick off the conversation. Actually, from our experience, and due to the fact that we are very much project-based as an organization, we realize that if we don't evaluate our actions, if we don't have these reflective practices that before someone mentioned about how we have also to question ourselves, not only the participants, about how was this mind changing for you? What this is, how do you feel? Like the most simple question, how do you feel after this activity? Do you feel well? Did you like it? Did you feel stressed? I mean, all this, there are different kinds of, let's say, templates about how can you assess something, but there are the challenge with creativity in the arts and the impact is that it has this, the impact has this intangible nature, that the feeling, the well-being is not easily measured. There are many surveys starting to come up the last years about, from example, from departments of psychology, or that really start to measure these kinds of, they have indicators, let's say, for that. But to us, the most simple question is if you feel well before doing it, while doing it, and after doing it. What's during all the stages of the process. So reflection is key. I totally, I think Eric said that in the beginning about reflection. So I think this is something very important, and this is actually the challenge, as I mentioned in my presentation, about how do we measure, because culture and creative sector has been lots of years under threat or challenged all the time, because many people start with the economic impact of arts and creativity. I have done these kinds of mappings in previous works, for example. And it's true that this is happening. The indicators are but the thing is, apart from the intangible part, is that also the effect is long-term. You might have the effect like in 10 years time, but you have to have some constant presence of arts and creativity in your life. To see how you shift the mindset, how you change. And due to the fact that we have so many cross-disciplinary projects, we have many expertise people coming in on the same table. So you have entrepreneurs, you have a law background person, and then you have an artist. And what comes up in a focus group or in a table is amazing. The amazing thing is that we don't do it this often. And sometimes the sectors are fragmented. They're sitting to their own, with their own people, let's say. So, and this is a responsibility of all sides. I don't say it's just from the artist side, it's from everybody. So I think keeping an open mind is key for me. Trying to talk with people that you're not sure you have something to say. When you have opportunities like this, for example, for me, this was a great opportunity when I hear all these ideas from so different backgrounds and I say, okay, we should work with him and her. And I'm all this time, because it's very exciting. But you have to keep your mind open. And sometimes this, in this fear world, sometimes is very hard. People are very, sometimes they're, how can I say it? They're very afraid to open up because they might think that they're threatened by someone or someone will steal their idea. I don't know. But sharing, for me, sharing knowledge is super important. It's not for ourselves, it's for everyone. So sharing is caring, as the motto says. If someone else wants to take the lead to speak. Yelena.
I think, Eric, did you want to start with something? Or okay.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I just want to come back to a couple of things that I read in the chats, and Constantina was just saying how I think it was Ed who wrote that he envisioned art as something playful, totally spontaneous, and then we see all of these methods that are very formative and structural. I'm also not an arts person. I have a background in journalism, and I do project coordination. And when I started working in Al Teatr, I met all of these artistic people, actors, producers, directors, screenplay writers, and it was a clash of two words. I have a very systematic approach to things. So we do this, then we evaluate it, reflect on it, learn from it, and they're like, let's improvise. So it's like it was a huge clash. And last year I brought together activists and actors, and the first meeting was like very mind-opening for everyone, because the activists were like, okay, the things you do are, silly. They're not vital. They're not, you're just like goofing around. You're actors, you're creating art. We are doing real change. We're on the streets, we're with the people, we're making change happen. So this was their perception of actors. When we were working on the process of creating this one curriculum, they shifted because they saw what they can use from ours. They saw how beneficial it is for them in their work, in their activism. Actors found inspiration in what people were doing in the local community as activists, what they were changing. So I think this is the crucial, and Constantina mentioned it, kind of opening up, reaching out, and like putting behind these prejudice or very in different sectors we're purpose to ourselves. So we do what we are used to do. We do it. We have our goals and agendas. But when we open up, there are so many synergies that can be beneficial. And for us was this: we connected advocacy efforts with drama, and now we created a curriculum that we plan on publishing this year as an open source knowledge. But the process was amazing how they shifted their way of thinking about each other. And this is true for every sector, connecting with arts and learning for each other. So yeah, I just wanted to share that. Eric?
I would add, if I could presume to generalize about the learning in the US, where there are many experiments of this kind, over a couple of decades, here's what we have succeeded at, which is recognizing that assessing impact is essential, that there are some kinds of assessment that are essential to provide for the systems we work within or work around, and that there are often another set of criteria of success that matter to those who come from the creative side. They matter to us dearly. We recognize that a large percentage of them cannot be assessed, and we say, okay, though, let's not assess those, but let's assess the things we can. So we have learned to manage and often find a relationship between two kinds of assessment. What we have not succeeded at is having conversations across experiments that allow us some consistency of data collection, so that we have a gigantic pile of data that does not add up to more than the sum of its parts, because it is program specific or area specific, and there isn't even really agreement on what areas should be focused on for finding common priorities for assessment, so that we could make a larger argument. There are little pockets where that has been accomplished, but largely we have remained weak because we have remained so separate.
And let me pick up on that, because I'm trying to be mindful of the time, but there is something important, I think, in this that can lead us to another theme too, that it's probably not even really the measuring that is really the bottleneck, but somehow all of these coming together into a bigger picture, and that larger argument that Eric and I were talking about. And I've seen a few comments that I think aligned with this, for example, from Simon, who's making the argument that we have to be able to make the case for the world in terms of what the world values. So we have to connect the argument, and he argues that it's a financial and economic gain that must be shown directly. But I think the message of this is that there needs to be an argument that ties and integrates what art can bring in a tangible way to the world, and that has to be able to have a shared kind of evaluation or measurement framework, and that might be something that's important. And what this leads me to, that was another comment, I think probably from Olivier, is that this fragmentedness, overcoming this fragmentedness, do we need an alliance? And to even broaden this question, really, I think the question is, what are really the obstacles to change? And actually on two levels. One is how can we impact the system, and what can we do on the ground impacting our own story and community. And there were two people who I would like to call in, because they had comments and questions about this throughout the chat, and they seem to be very active and interesting. Yasir and Dora. And if you guys wouldn't mind, you had questions towards this, Yasir, for example, the obstacles, the systemic obstacles of adapting these programs. I would like to ask you guys to comment or add to these questions if you'd like. Yasir.
Hi, hi, Yasser here.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much. So I'd like maybe to pick up on 2 points that Eric and Dave mentioned in their presentations. First of all, thank you to everyone who has presented today. Really a great group of talks, really inspiring. So I'll begin maybe from something that affects the beginning of implementing programs that include or that are based on arts, and where Eric mentioned that there is resistance sometimes that is faced by project initiators to convince hosting institutions to or maybe funding sources to fund or host or to sponsor such initiatives. Maybe this is related to a vision of arts as maybe an unnecessary tool to societal improvement, if I may say. So maybe one question here is that how we can make a case that arts, connection to arts, can actually bring value to the society, to the community. Another point that affects now not the beginning of such a project, but the end of such a project that Dave has mentioned, is that after the reflection stage of that learners go through, okay, how can you transfer the knowledge that you have gained in a project or in one context to another learning project or another learning experience or another learning stage of one's life? So these two issues, you know, if we look at arts-based programs from an end-to-end perspective, maybe these are two issues that are worthy of investigation. Thank you.
Any of you would like to comment on this? Okay, then just one thing that comes to my mind to actually look a little bit towards action as well, because it seems to be that this kind of larger argument and overcoming fragmentation seems to be a key kind of thing that we should be or could be working on or exploring. And it's just occurred to me that that maybe this is something that falls within the domain of what the Learning Planet and Cree and us at Khan are doing, and maybe we can figure out a platform where we can come together and start working on that together. And also, Olivier, you have your hands up, so please, or was it by mistake?
No, I just wanted to jump in very quickly.
Yeah.
I'm putting a lot of comments in the chat. It's really great to see you. I mean, it's a huge pleasure to learn about so many incredible examples. I've been doing this for 12, 15 years, meeting people, doing incredible things. So that's very stimulating. And at the same time, we see that it doesn't change globally. So the conversation we're having, the conversation we're having together is very important, because, I mean, that has to change, really. And maybe my call is, how can we bring together CAN and all the artists and Arts for Education doing incredible things, also with the incredible scientists program that we see, or the social entrepreneurs one, all the ones which are bringing learning to life, connecting them to the community, making real change happen, really empowering children and allowing for child participation at all levels of their education. And I think the alliance, if we have the scientists and if we have social entrepreneurs and if we have the artists and trying to do something together. So indeed, that's what we are trying to do with the Learning Planet, and 100 is doing something else, and the Global Education Coalition from UNESCO, and the Catalyst. I mean, there are meta networks now trying to do these things, meta networks. So at some point, I mean, often if I see a good initiative on climate education, I see 100 being launched kind of the same day by different people, sometimes 3 times by UNICEF, not even knowing that UNICEF is launching 3 campaigns. And one of the things that has inspired us is the Planetary Emergency Coalition, bringing together 300 meta players or big networks, each of them touching millions of people, trying to address climate issues. And I'm not saying it's changing very much, but at least they come together and they try to lobby and to have so it's all of these organizations coming together. How to do this takes time. I mean, we started 2 years ago with 1 conference at UNESCO. Last year, a bit more. This year, it's growing, but we are very far from reaching out to the networks of teachers that could be, you know, we've connected, Leonora is maybe here, we've connected to 41 networks of teachers around the world. They are not all there. We're connected to the Students' Union, to so many groups of people, but having the word out, so we need the strength, and I stop there, of the artists, but I think at this time we need the artists together with the social entrepreneurs, together with other big change makers, if we want to be heard and to have this happening.
And Dora, please come in and share.
Yeah, I just wanted to quickly share this story. We had an open space for systems changers earlier last year. And for example, there, like Tampere, the city in Finland, is embracing the donut economics and trying to work with it in a regional level. And we were just discussing there, like, how would it look like if before presenting any IPCC report in the future, there would be an artist collective presenting an alternative way of economics globally. So scientists feel very, you know, I hope they are not like desperate or very, you know, depressed and whatnot. But how could you utilize art, not just, you know, within schools or trying to push into schools, which is of course important too, but how to reach out and engage with economists, how to reach out and engage with other law and professions in general, so that this new world can be dreamt up with the creative power of arts, because that's what's missing. Law and policy making and economists and other scientists are lacking that skill. So you need to be able to go out and engage with others and not, you know, concentrate on something small, still important, but smaller with children, but also those who are making decisions now.
I think I mean personally, and I fully agree, and there is a huge gap between kind of what we know and what we can actually activate and do. I mean, this is a huge task, really, and we're trying to add what we can to this at CAN, Community Arts Network. And what I felt that now that we only have 3 minutes left, I would like to somehow bring something that is a next step or an action item on this, because one thing is that we have heard from a number of initiatives, and we will share the notes with you guys. So if there was something really to pick up on, both in terms of ideas, conceptual approach or thinking, then please do use that or reach out to any of us with further questions. Also, if one of the tools or solutions that are out there, that's also available. And there is a third element that kept coming up, really, was making this argument, this credible kind of larger argument and narrative for arts being a vital and important tool and vehicle or puzzle piece in the mosaic of change that we cannot really ignore and neglect. And I think that is something that we'll start the conversation on, and we'll reach out, because this needs everyone to really to work on. And then we also have to have some kind of collective action and platform to kind of bring it out to the world. So Anis, any of you guys, anyone else? There are 2 minutes left. Any closing comments or ideas? Please raise a hand or just jump in.
If I want to share something from the law background, answering to Dora, actually what I wanted to say is that people like me who are not artists that have experienced the impact of creativity in the arts should be basically the ambassadors, people who connect the arts with the rest of the sectors, because we know how it feels, we know, we have experienced, and as we would also do in our projects, experiential learning is the most impactful for everything. So it's not just the students being educated and trained, but also us. It's an experience for me as well. So I think that this is something I would suggest, to create a pool of people who have experience in the arts, who have felt what it means. And this should be people campaigning for the arts, campaigning for more arts in education and for everything, basically. So yeah, that was my comment.
In the chat, Simon put in a pretty interesting and strong idea, but we're kind of out of time. I urge everyone just to look at that. Luis, you raised your hand. So I mean, if you guys can stay, a few more comments, if anyone
It's
wants.
just a very small thing in response to your question of what we can do. And I'm just thinking a small, simple thing that we can all do is, I don't connect. I've heard so many inspiring, about so many different inspiring initiatives all around the world. But something that we can all do is to connect with each other, connect with, 3-4 people who we met today, and continue this conversation beyond this Zoom seminar that we had, continue these conversations that we're having. So yeah, I just wanted to say that, as small and simple as it may be.
I wanted to jump in, and Yasia, sorry, I'm jumping in front of you. That's very impolite, but we've had conversation, Anis and Ksheba, about why don't we create an Arts for Education common circle that meets on a regular basis. And this is working very well with the youth empowerment. It's working quite well with the learning for sustainability. I mean, should we decide that we do this and that it's a Can Learning Planet circle, and we start connecting on a more regular basis? That could be something we announce tomorrow at the closing, and something we do engage in doing together. We've started it, but this could be a very concrete next step.
I think, that just a quick one. Yeah, let's do that, and we'll reach out and let you guys know, and then we can continue these conversations. Yasir, sorry, go ahead.
Yes, thank you very much. Just a very quick remark. Maybe a good start for making arts more relevant for the society in general, to individuals in general, is to talk about literacy of arts. Teaching people the basics of dealing with art, with artifacts. People have always been taught, math and science, and they're used to it. And when they engage in, learning with scientific-based projects, it's more natural to them than dealing with, appreciating a work art, a painting, or a concerto. So maybe starting with how to decipher a work art can bring people closer to appreciating later on engaging in arts-based programs. Thank you.
And Ed, and you are the last person who has your hand up, and then we respectfully.
Yeah, I also have the control over the Zoom, so I have the power to keep it open, but I'm very conscious of people's time. Yeah, so I did put in the chat link towards, we have already, as Olivier said, been setting up collaborative circles around learning sustainability, youth empowerment, transitions in higher education. A key feature of these circles is that it's not just run by Learning Planet and we go with it. It's systematically in collaboration with co-leading organizations. And we really identify, okay, what is the operational part of the co-creation? What's the intellectual part of this co-creation? What's the network part of this co-creation? And so you'll see, if you click on the form I put in the chat, that there isn't yet an Arts for Education circle there, but there is a box. If you have a suggestion for a circle that you want to create, or if we see that, there really is this demand and interest, then we're already all for putting it together and making it happen. And then the last thing before I stop, a big shout out as well to Jeffren and the Tutti Passo d'Art team, because 2 weeks ago they were at UNESCO, did an incredible performance with limitations of COVID, pandemic, etc. 300 incredible people there, amazing youth orchestra. Really do recommend checking it out as another really practical, powerful example of arts for impact. And I stop there.
Well then, thank you everyone again for coming, speaking, sharing, listening, just being here. Thank you for the attention, and then we hope to continue through this circle. Thank you everyone.
Thank you very